Things you don't know about Disneyland Part 1. Disneyland Park. Originally, Disneyland is the first of two theme parks built at the Disneyland Resort in Anaheim, California. Opened on July 17, 1955. It is the only theme park designed and built to completion under the direct supervision of Walt Disney. It was originally the only attraction on the property. Its official name was changed to Disneyland Park to distinguish it from the expanding complex in the 1990s. It was the first Disney theme park. Walt Disney came up with the concept of Disneyland after visiting various amusement parks with his daughters in the 1930s and 1940s. He initially envisioned building a tourist attraction adjacent to his studios in Burbank to entertain fans who wished to visit. However, he soon realized that his proposed site was too small. After hiring a consultant to help him determine an appropriate site for his project, Disney bought a 160-acre site near Anaheim in 1953. Construction began in 1954 and the park was unveiled during a special televised press event on the ABC television network on July 17, 1955. Since its opening, Disneyland has undergone expansions and major renovations, including the addition of New Orleans Square in 1966, Bear Country, now Crater Country, in 1972, Mickey's Toontown in 1993, and Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in 2019. Opened in 2001, Disney California Adventure Park was built on the site of Disneyland's original parking lot. Disneyland has a larger cumulative attendance than any other theme park in the world, with 726 million visitors since it opened as of December 2018. In 2018, the park had approximately 18.6 million visitors, making it the second most visited amusement park in the world that year, behind only Magic Kingdom, the very park it inspired. According to a March 2005 Disney report, 65,700 jobs are supported by the Disneyland Resort, including about 20,000 direct Disney employees and 3,800 third-party employees, independent contractors, or their employees. Disney announced Project Stardust in 2019, which included major structural renovations to the park to account for higher attendance numbers. Walt Disney's vision of a real-life fantasy world brought magical animation to life when it opened its gates back in 1955, and through the decades it has become a staple of American pop culture thanks to its collection of lovable characters, exciting rides, and theatrical presentation. Disneyland may have provided us lifelong memories, but it's also kept secrets hidden in the Disney Vault right next to several of its popular video releases. Here are the notable things you don't know about Disneyland. Number 1. The plants in Tomorrowland are all edible. Yes, you can eat the plants in Tomorrowland, as the themed island is meant to double as a farm where humanity makes the most of its resources. The theme for Tomorrowland in 1998 was Agri-Future. The Disneyland Imagineers wanted to present a sustainable and eco-friendly future. As a result, Disneyland worked to make the visionary landscaping double as a potential farm where humanity makes the most of its resources. You can still see this Agri-Future billboard along the Disneyland Railroad right before the Tomorrowland stop near Autopia. However, you have to ride the train to see it. Imagineers believed that all free space in the future would be needed to grow food for the world's large population, so as a part of their Agri-Future design, all ornamental landscaping was replaced with beautifully manicured yet edible gardens. Look around next time you are in Tomorrowland. You won't see any flowers there. Instead, you will see the landscaped areas filled with fruits, vegetables, herbs, and seasonings. While all those beautifully manicured fruits and vegetables might be tempting to eat, it. The cast members warned us they are sprayed heavily with pesticides, so stick to getting your fruit from the fruit stands in the park. To keep the landscape looking perfect, the plants are changed out 8 to 10 times per year all around Disneyland. Number 2. There are upside down orange trees planted in Disneyland. Walt Disney wanted to create life-like setting to enhance storylines of rides and features at the park. He wanted a finished look for opening day, but he only had a year. According to the Disney Parks blog, Walt Disney asked Bill Evans and his brother Jack, "How about you fellows landscaping Disneyland for me?" Landscape architect Bill Evans was known for using unusual plants and using plants in unusual ways. As Disney Imagineer Terry Palmer explained, in the Jungle Cruise, there's a group of orange trees that most people would never recognize because Bill planted them upside down. He decided the gnarled roots of the orange trees looked like suitably exotic jungle branches. Bill's name is now on a shop window on Main Street. The tour guides explained that each window on Main Street has a name of a fictional vendor who owns the business. Disneyland used the shop windows to give credit to important creators at the park. Furthermore, the guide said it's like credits at the end of a movie. Take a close look at the Opera House and you will see a top left window reads Evans Gardens Exotic and Rare Bayside Freeway Collections established 1910 Morgan Bill Evans Senior Partner. Number 3. A pet cemetery is located behind the Haunted Mansion. Next time you step foot into the Haunted Mansion, take a walk behind it and you will stumble upon a pet cemetery where there's even a gravestone for Mr. Toad. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride is a themed dark ride attraction at Disneyland Park in Anaheim, California. It is loosely based on Disney's adaptation of Kenneth Graham's The Wind in the Willows 1908. One of two segments comprising the animated package film The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad 1949. The ride is one of the few remaining attractions operational since the park's opening in July 1955. Although the current iteration of the ride opened in 1983, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride is located in Fantasyland, and a variation of the attraction also existed at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom in Orlando, Florida from the park's opening in 1971 until September 1998. In any variation of the attractions, guests assume the role of the titular Mr. Toad, recklessly journeying through the English countryside and streets of London in a period motorcar before ultimately meeting demise in a railway tunnel and ending up in a tongue-in-cheek depiction of hell. The ride's ending has no significance to the events of either the animated film or the original novel. Originally envisioned as a roller coaster, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride was realized as a dark ride because Walt Disney felt as though a roller coaster might not have been appropriate for young children and the elderly. Corey Burton performs every voice in the current version of the attraction except for the usage of audio from the film. Number 4. The Matterhorn has a basketball court. A half-court basketball structure can supposedly be found above the coaster ride, where employees go to shoot hoops during breaks. Rumor is it still sits at the top of the mountain. A backboard and hoop are attached to the side of a wooden staircase in a break room that's higher than the top of the bobsled tracks. There's a story about the hoop. After Walt Disney submitted the plans for the the Matterhorn to the city of Anaheim. A city official phoned him, "Your building permit is denied. The structure exceeds Anaheim Heights limits. The only structures of that height allowed by the Anaheim Building Code are sports facilities." Walt thought about it for a few seconds. Then he turned to his staff and directed them proceed with the construction of the Matterhorn, but put a basketball hoop in it. Now a sports facility. It's a great story, but there's no truth to it. The real but mundane explanation is that early climbers solved the problem of break room boredom with a basketball and a hoop. Number 5. Disneyland was built in just 1 year. Despite early financial troubles, the $17 million theme park opened its doors with the estimated time span of 365 days. It was described as the stuff children's dreams are made on by the Life magazine. In spite of a rocky opening day, the theme park attracted more than 1 million visitors in its first 2 months in business, offering a spectacle quite unlike any other at the time. Number 6. Steve Martin and Michelle Pfeiffer both worked there. The SNL legend was on staff selling guidebooks at the Main Street Magic Shop in the 50s, whereas Catwoman herself suited up as Alice from Alice in Wonderland during the 70s. Number 7. A secret apartment hides inside the theme park's fire station. During the construction of Disneyland, Walt wanted an area where he could watch his dreams come to fruition, so the construction crew built him an apartment on Main Street, USA, on the second floor of the theme park's firehouse. Once the park opened, he would stand in the window and watch as guests poured through the front gates and enjoyed his creation. Because it's located on top of the firehouse, the apartment is really small, so small that it doesn't even have a bedroom. At 500 square feet, the apartment features a kitchen, bathroom, family room area, and wooden desk. Where Walt once worked from, originally decorated by Disney set designer and designer of Main Street, USA, Emil Corey, the apartment has a red and white theme to match the firehouse. While most of the original furniture has been replaced, the apartment decor still has the same 1950s feel with the original fire engine, red carpet, and window treatments. It once had a hidden fire pole in the closet. It's no secret that Walt Disney liked to have fun, so a hidden fire pole was definitely a necessity in his Disneyland apartment. The pole was located in a closet of the apartment, but sadly sealed up after an eager young fan climbed up the pole in an effort to meet the man behind the magic. It's most of the decorations are antiques. Walt and his wife Lillian picked out themselves. It was all little things that they picked up when they were traveling around the country various times. Walt's daughter, Dan Disney Miller, once shared with Huffington Post, the terrace of the apartment faces the Jungle Cruise. In addition to the indoor space, Walt Disney's Disneyland apartment also features a terrace that overlooks the Jungle Cruise. But while you may be able to hear the animatronic animals from the outdoor area, it's covered up by large trees and shrubbery for privacy. Rumor has it Walt's nephews used to climb down the terrace and jump out at gates, enjoying the Jungle Cruise. The light in the window represents Walt's spirit. The window above the firehouse where Walt Disney once stood and marveled at his beloved theme park sits a small lamp. Cast members lit the light to symbolize his spirit is alive at Disneyland. That said, whenever his daughters would visit the park, the light was switched off out of respect for their loss. Number 8. Over 200 feral cats live in the park. It's possible they have been there since day one in 1955, but they have been there for years at the very least, and according to reports, Disneyland is happy to have them. We hate to rain on Mickey Mouse loving fans, but there's a concerted campaign to keep the happiest place on earth completely free to Mickey's family members. Disney is so committed to pest control, they lose local feral cats to wander freely in the park when it's closed. From time to time, the Disney Corporation fails to have the kitty denizens spayed and neutered, and they relocate new kittens to local no-kill shelters to help keep the feline population under control. Estimates range from 100 to 200 cats living between the two theme parks of the Disneyland Resort, and while they tend to stay hidden during the day, they roam the park freely at night. The main reason that Disneyland keeps the cats around is that they keep down the rodent population of the park. One can certainly imagine that with the amount of open space in the two parks of Disneyland Resort, that can be a significant problem, and by keeping the cats around, they can keep things under control. Certainly, guests would rather see a feral cat in the bushes than a rat. At the same time, the park needs to make sure the feline population stays under control. To that end, the park reportedly has a TNR program, which stands for Trap, Neuter, Return. The cats are picked up, fixed, and then returned to the park to do their thing. They are also given vaccinations against disease. This program was originally handled by an outside company, but since 2007, Disney has been handling it internally. Kittens that are born inside the park are picked up and given homes. There are 5 feeding stations around the park for the felines, as well as shelters to give them a place to sleep. Number 9. There is no mosquitoes at Walt Disney World. The land was essentially a massive swamp. Walt Disney World Resort has just as many mosquitoes as any place else in Florida, which is a lot. The difference is that the Reedy Creek Improvement District, the municipality that governs Walt Disney World, goes to great lengths to keep the mosquito population under control in order to make sure that guests have a positive experience that isn't ruined by bugs or the disease they can potentially carry. In the mid-1960s, Walt Disney hired retired Army Major General William E. Joe Potter, who had previously worked on the Panama Canal project, for his expertise in dealing with mosquitoes. Potter knew that stagnant water was where the insects laid their eggs, and that's why he oversaw the construction of ditches that would remove any water before it had a chance to pool. This took on the nickname Joe's Ditches. Even water in the park that appears to be staying still, it always moving. Buildings on the property have their roofs constructed so that rainwater always runs completely off and never leaves a pool of water. Even plants that might leave standing water on their leaves are avoided. The most obvious way to stop insects is with insecticide, and to be sure, Walt Disney World uses insecticide, but spraying the entire Walt Disney World property would be time-consuming, expensive, and incredibly inefficient. This is why the park maintains dozens of traps all over the property, which use carbon dioxide to lure in the trap mosquitoes. Again, the goal isn't trap all the bugs, rather the trapped mosquitoes are frozen and analyzed. This reveals their species, their concentration, and other details that allow Ready Creek to know how best to deal with them. Animals are a big way to keep insects under control. Natural mosquito predators can be found all over Walt Disney World, but you will also find chickens. Yes, chickens. Walt Disney World keeps multiple coops of what are called sentinel chickens at various places on property. The sole job of these chickens is to be bitten by mosquitoes. Chickens can become carriers for the various viruses that mosquitoes can carry, but they rarely become sick because of them. The blood of the chickens is regularly analyzed to see if area mosquitoes are carrying anything dangerous such as West Nile virus. Number 10. Walt Disney required all employees to be cleanly shaven. Facial hair was prohibited on theme park workers since founder Walt Disney opened Disneyland in California in the mid-1950s to distinguish the park from sleazy carnivals of the time. The rule was slightly amended in 2000 to allow masters provided they were fully grown away from the workplace. Number 11. Real human skeletons were used as props when Pirates of the Caribbean first opened, adding a sense of realism to the attraction. Disneyland had real human remains on exhibit on loan from UCLA, but only one human skull remains as of today. Disneyland's Pirates of the Caribbean, built in 1967, was the last ride whose creation Walt Disney himself supervised before the passenger boards were completed. The Imagineers pushed him through on a dolly and solicited his feedback. He loved it and was especially happy that each time guests go through, they will hear something new and different. It was hard-earned phrase. Building the ride involved close collaboration between the machine shop, the animatronics team, and the sculpting and wardrobe departments, and the whole thing cost $15 million, about $106 million in today's currency, and as much as the rest of the park combined. After creating such realistic mayhem, the design team was disappointed by the poor skeletons of the period, which they found just too unconvincing, reports former Disney producer Jason Sorrell in his book Pirates of the Caribbean: From the Magic Kingdom to the Movies. So they hit up their friends at UCLA Medical Center and got some wrestling props from the anatomy department. Eventually, as fake skeleton technology improved, a new generation of Imagineers replaced the real ones, which were later returned to their countries of origin and given a proper burial. Azure Sorrel. Number 12. Park admission was only $3.5 when it first opened. Believe it or not, entering Disneyland in the 50th century cost just a little over a MTA fare in 2015. Number 13. Walt Disney's daughters were the inspiration behind Disneyland. The concept for Disneyland began when Walt Disney was visiting Griffith Park in Los Angeles with his daughters Diana and Sharon. While watching them ride the merry-go-round, he came up with the idea of a place where adults and their children could go and have fun together. Though his dream lay dormant for many years, he may have also been influenced by his father's memories of the World's Columbian Exposition 1893 in Chicago. His father worked at the exposition. Thanks for watching. Kindly please check for the next part of this video. If you like the video, please subscribe to my channel, hit the like button below, and please don't forget to share this video with your friends.